This is update for June 23, 2023, day 485 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for June 22 and a little bit of for June 24. So I think everybody's paying attention to what's going on with Wagner organization. That's what's going on in Russia. So I will, start with that because I'm sure viewers are most interested in this situation. So what happened is one thing is very clear that Wagner Group started moving and took control of Rostov-on-Don. This is large Russian city in the south of Russia. There is headquarters of the Russian army in Novocherkassk, which is here, and then there's also in Rostov-on-Don. So this is all controlled at this point by the Wagner Group. The way it started is head of Wagner Group said that Russian military was shelling them and shelling with artillery and rockets and all that. It does look staged, so it looks that was just pretext or the casus belli for the action, and it was sort of not real one. This is and so let's just kind of go through the sort of what's happening in terms of developments, and then we can just kind of talk about a little bit about scenarios, why, and so on. So and now Wagner Group or Wagner, fighters, probably the best way to describe it, because it's not really a typical mercenary or company in the Western meaning. It's actually very different. It's truly organization, and so they are on the road towards Moscow. They allegedly somewhere on approaching Voronezh, somewhere in that area. And what the head of Wagner Group is sort of stating is that he blames basically Minister of Defense and head of chief of staff of Russian army for all of the failures, for this attack on Ukraine in the first place, and so on. Basically, he is not attacking Russian president. I just want to be very clear. There are sort of implicit attacks in terms of that he's old and doesn't have, as he says, doesn't have balls, and so on. But it's not direct attack. The attack is directed towards Ministry of Defense, and the stated goal is just, remove Minister of Defense from its role and his head of general staff, and that's why they're moving towards Moscow. In terms of Russian military, they don't put up any, they don't resist for the most part. Not saying 100%. There are some sporty situations, but in general they don't resist because, as I said before, head of Wagner Group has tremendous support among Russian military and Russian population. So it's in a way kind of like, Napoleon returning from Elba to Paris, essentially, in something like that, in terms of how it's perceived. Russian sort of political class is trying to, they allegedly put some defensive line here, like north of Voronezh. I don't think anyone is gonna be sort of basically putting any resistance. There are some police troops gathered in around Moscow, but none of those is gonna support current political class. It doesn't have, relative to the head of Wagner Group, it's offering, I think it's just strikes very populist desire in Russian society for sort of truth, fairness, just kind of like general, philosophical categories that are not there, and he states those, and that's resonates in a significant portion of the Russian population. Whether he's gonna deliver that or not, that's totally different. Nobody knows, right? That's what he states, and sort of people take it at the face value. In terms of another look at this is just more philosophical. Is it's fight between entrepreneurship and statism, right? So Russian president is a typical representative of statism, right? And the head of Wagner Group is sort of representative of entrepreneurship, and that's sort of really the fight between those two forces. And I'm not even saying that they realize who they are. This is sort of at subconscious level for each side, what they're doing. That's how they wired. They wired very differently, and they see different passes for Russia. This also could be controlled, as I said before, could be controlled demolition in Russia, because certain part of the Russian political top realizing that Russia is sort of facing dead end in this situation right now, or prospects of very, very, very bleak if it continues the way it is. And they sort of preemptively trying to put someone who can offer opportunity or create opportunity for Russia. And that is actually true, because if the head of Wagner organization is going to be, let's say, in charge of Russia, or effectively, he's not going to be sort of nominally, I don't think, but effectively driving everything in Russia, it will be a net very positive for Russia. It will make it much more stronger opponent for Ukraine. That is for sure. There is actually, in this way, there is actually question whether he actually wants to continue the war. There is very high probability that he will decide to settle the war, and this might be the part of why it's being done, because there is a need to find someone to blame for all of this, for this aggression from Russia, and it could be and he directly blamed already Minister of Defense and head of General Staff. And so this is kind of like, in a way out potentially. This is one of the scenarios, because right now it's extremely unclear. I'm not gonna say this is for sure, but one of the scenarios is to basically settle this conflict. Potentially, how it's going to be settled isn't clear, but Ukrainian position is very clear. Ukraine wants territorial integrity, and this might be sort of way out. Find scapegoats. Here they are. We unfortunately lost. Basically, the message will be something like that. We lost many people because this two bad people sort of put us in this position. We have to withdraw, and so and sort of kind of like withdraw, regroup, and so on. So this is one potential scenario. The other one is actually continue the war, except it's going to be done at much more professional level, much better quality, the way Wagner organization performs or used to perform on the front line. And that's going to be very, very big problem for Ukraine if this goes this way. I actually not sure how Ukraine will be able to withstand to Russia if this has happened. If this is sort of worst case scenario for Ukraine, because as I said many times before, the current Ukrainian political and military top is inept, unintelligent, corrupt, all of these words. This is always in my opinion, which makes them actually threat to the national survival of Ukraine. And if and this is what I was saying. There is sort of this, one Soviet army versus another Soviet army, right? They more or less equal. Ukraine gets some help in terms of the Western equipment to kind of balance, to extend, Russian numerical superiority. If head of Wagner Group, basically, if Russia becomes Wagner Group, in other words, it becomes extremely efficient, or it's not efficient at the level, let's say, West, but it's much, much more efficient to where it is right now. And giving the amount of resources and everything, you multiply by that increase in efficiency, it's unsurmountable situation for Ukraine, and giving its inefficiency, right? So this is going to be, as I said, worst case scenario for Ukraine. If head of Wagner Group decides to really wage the war like all in, basically. So that's so far what's going on. As I said, it's all the sort of casus belli was clearly staged, so it was all pre-planned. So there is as I said, there's high probability it's all sort of controlled demolition, and it's in some other ways. I mentioned about this 1917 moment, and it's attempt to preempt that 1917 moment in Russia, which is very if it's done right, it may work out. We'll find out very soon. As things develop, I probably will do another update later in the day, as if there's enough news, there is new developments. So now let's actually switch to the situation in Ukraine, actually. So what Ukrainian command started doing, they attempting to separate Crimean Peninsula from the sort of the rest of the landmass that's controlled by Russia, logistically. And so what happened? Ukrainian side attacked and destroyed the bridge that's connecting Crimea to the mainland. I guess we can use that word here. And this is the main sort of main road, like artery. This was the artery that sort of feeds Crimea, essentially. All of the supply is going through it, like not only military, but like for civilians, everything, basically trade, and that's the main route. And so that was destroyed. Crimean bridge is essentially not usable at this point, or very limited use, let's put this way. And also can be destroyed, right? So that's probably could be the next sort of target. So what's left? There is also a very bad road here where I show, and it also has bridges. So that's probably going to get destroyed. And this road doesn't have any throughput or anything even close to this, artery, as I said. It's basically, this is like highway built during Soviet time, versus here it's like, rural road, basically. So it's just to understand the difference. So this probably is going to get destroyed anyways, the bridges here. So those two are not going to be usable. However, Crimea is connected through the land here, where I'm showing. So that obviously there's no bridges. You cannot really destroy that. However, as you can see, this forces Russian side to move much closer to Ukrainian troops, and also there is indication that Ukrainian side is trying to build a bridgehead here, which will obviously put this whole situation in very direct threat. And that's probably the plan down the road, to basically expand the bridgehead and attempt to move in the direction of Crimea and basically block it. So this is what's happening. It's in early stages. Whether it's going to be successful remains to be seen. It's very, very difficult undertaking, so I would not be sort of betting on it, but it's sort of reasonable sort of attempt. As I said, just the question of if it's probability of whether it's going to be successful or not. Now let's a little bit switch to generally battlefield. And I mentioned before that the situation is sort of very imbalance right now, but can easily go out of balance for either side. And by that, let me explain. Go back to what I said in the previous video, where I explained that in a way, if Ukrainian side tried to attack, was not successful, lost certain percentage of its firepower and manpower, I would say up to 20%, maybe 15. Don't know exact details, but let's say some percentage. There's still firepower. There's still ability to continue offensive. The problem is, as I said, there's no skills to overcome Russian defenses, but it's possible. Like if, again, with a lot of ifs, if Ukrainian army were better prepared, better commanders, everything worked properly. It's meritocracy, not negative selection. It's like if Ukrainian army were completely opposite of what it is, then yes, it's doable. It's extremely hard task, but it's achievable. In the current form, it's not possible for Ukrainian army, and so that's why Ukrainian side stopped and is not trying to continue attacks, because all they will lead is to burning this power fist that was developed. And at the same time, as I said before, and this is what Russian Minister of Defense said, that they are forming a reserve army and reserve corps in the Russian rear. Obviously, the size of it is I'm not sure. At the minimum, it's probably 40,000 people, probably more, but I'm saying at the minimum. That's what I would say. That's why I said it's a minimum. Probably upwards to the 80,000, and this will be ready sometime early July. So, as you can see, the whole idea of the Russian side was, okay, let Ukrainian command attack, lose equipment, lose people, become barely sort of shadow itself, and then counterattack with this reserve army and reserve corps. So this is very simple idea, and it's probably still going to happen sometime later. That Russian side also will try to do counteroffensive. Don't know. I would say it's not July. I think if this thing with Wagner organization didn't happen, I would say probably could have happened sometime in August, together with Wagner, basically, as a combined source. Now this whole situation is totally thrown out, and there's sort of totally new development, and we'll see what happens. It still may happen if this change of power happens peacefully without any problems in Russia. It's very likely that this could happen if, as I said before, Russian side decides to continue war. This is totally possible. Whether it's going to be successful or not, I would say, giving the size and if Wagner Group is in charge, there is chance of success. It's not going to be sort of smashing success by any means, but they can capture some more land, Ukrainian land. Don't know how much, but they can definitely create some dent and create a lot of losses for Ukraine, and create a lot of strain in Ukraine. And there's a lot of strain. Just want to say there's a lot of internal strain in Ukraine. There is no equivalent of Wagner organization, as I said, and that's why this energy for change doesn't channel itself, but it's accumulating. At some point, it will be so much that it will find its own way into its own 1917 moment. And there is also another sort of not news but update, and I guess it's not going to be a surprise that Ukraine is coming closer and closer to sort of total mobilization, because it's losing human resources, and Ukraine is at least 4 times smaller at this point than Russia, and probably more like 5 at this point. So this puts extreme strain on the society internally, and as I said, it will only continue building up. So I will be updating as things develop, and I just want to quickly do walks through the front line, just kind of just sort of more for chronicling where we stand, and so we can kind of like don't lose track of where everything is going. So I'm going to start in a clockwise fashion, as I always do, starting from very north. So the situation along the state border is much quieter. There is shelling, there's all of that, but there's definitely not the same intensity we had at the beginning of June. Now let's jump to North Luhansk front line. Things here back to sort of its quiet state. By quiet, I mean there is no large-scale offensive operations. There's basically some kind of tactical skirmishes, attacks, but it's happening everywhere, and it's not, it's not nothing major. Let's put it this way. Now let's move to the North Donbass front line. Things here are quiet the same way as up in North Luhansk, and you see now a huge difference. It's pretty much, it's very static, nothing is changing, no moves here, north or south of Bakhmut. Basically it's quite sleepy, sort of. Well, sleepy, it's sort of figurative speech in terms of there's no active active fighting. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line. Things here are sort of somewhat similar the way they always are. As I always say, Russian troops attacked here in Marinka, this never-ending attacks, in Novomikhailivka similar, a little bit out of Pisky salient, and out of this, call it Avdiivka salient. But again, basically, this is attacks that go nowhere. Don't even know how to describe it. It's just totally World War One. That's all I can call it. And then Zaporizhya front line for now is quiet. As I said, the Ukrainian side, I would say probably, doesn't know what to do. Well, they know that they cannot continue because the way they did, because they will simply burn through everything without achieving anything, and then the Ukrainian side will be extremely exposed to counteroffensive that can lead to pretty bad results, even including potentially capture of Zaporizhya by Russian side, especially if it's done by Wagner Group. If it's done just by Russian army, it's probably not going to go anywhere. So it's going to be the same result as Ukrainian offensive, more or less. And that's why it's very important what's going to happen right now in Russia. And that's why I said it's going to be very worst case scenario if Wagner Group peacefully takes over power in Russia. And that's going to be also a very difficult situation for the West as well. It's going to be much, much, much stronger opponent than what Russia currently is for everyone. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.